Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
You know what time it is, so sit back and get ready for the Stafford Voice, your dose of conservative in a world of liberal.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, how are you tonight? I am your host, Daniel Stafford, and you are listening to the Stafford Voice, where we are conservative in a world of liberal, and tonight we are talking about how the games have already begun. And as we get started, I want to remind you that there are many ways to listen. So, set this channel as a favorite, whatever you have to do so you don't get left behind. Because if for some strange, crazy reason you do miss the show, well, relax. You'll be able to catch a replay. Just sit tight. There is no need to panic. I've got you. In the case you aren't already following on social media, you can do so over on the Twitters and Gab at Stafford Voice. Again, Twitters and the Gab at Stafford Voice. Or you can look things up over on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, wherever. All you got to do is just search for the Stafford Voice and we'll be there. Also, if you want to kind of keep things a little to yourself, you want to send a tip, or there's something that you want us to take a look at, you can do so by emailing us, thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. Again, that is thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. As we're getting things going here, if you're over on the website, if you're over on thestaffordvoice.com and you're watching or listening over there, and you see up at the top or in the bottom right-hand corner, it's asking for your email to sign up for the newsletter. I want you to know that with the help of my accountability group, we've decided to bring back the newsletter. It's going to come out once a month. We're still trying to work out a couple of things and figure out how it's going to work, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, to say the least. I think you'll be a little more pleased with that than you will the outcome of the election, no matter how it turns out. It's just a little crazy, and there are games left and right. So, let's get to the bottom line, shall we? And look, this is it. We are almost to the finish line of one of the most craziest of elections. And you know what's depressing? People are going nuts over this, including those that are running. But do you know what's funny? Each and every person will be absolutely glued to their couches awaiting the outcome. An outcome that we stand a chance of not knowing for days to come. One's going to argue that the system is rigged and demand some sort of action take place to make sure that they lost fair and square. The other, well, they'll probably argue that the Russians have sabotaged this election and we need to postpone the verification of the results until a full investigation is conducted to know to what extent Russia interfered. Yet, sadly, many people will lay down in fear that night that when they wake up in the morning, it will be the end of the world as we know it. And the reality of all of this, life will go on, and so will the country. But do not take all of that lightly. It isn't time to surrender. It's the time to fight. Just when your opponent thinks they have the upper hand, that is, you strike harder. We've discussed many important things on this show. We've looked at history. We've looked at individuals. Most of all, we've taken time to look at the groundwork that is laid out before us. We're armed, not with weapons, but with a knowledge that will bring forth a new era. But only if we work together. No one of us can do it alone. True, there may only be a few of us willing to stand with our feet in the fire, but too much is at stake. Now is not the time to rest. It's time to push forward, time to take back what once was plain and precious. Let us remember what those men and women that have come before us said when they stared death in the eye and said, quote, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. If that duty falls on us, let me echo the words of Thomas Paine when he said that, quote, these are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country, but he that stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. Heaven knows how to put a proper price on its goods, and it will be strange indeed if so celestial an article as freedom should not be highly rated. There's much more at stake than the outcome of this election. Win or lose, we have much work to get done. And truth be told, it will be a long and painful path we must travel. It took only a few men and women to start a revolution that gifted us with the pleasures of liberty and freedom for the last 200 plus years. It's been done before, and by the grace of God, we can do it again. I've said once before that it's easy to talk the talk, but the true test comes when you're faced with walking the walk. Standing in defense of all that makes America great will come with great challenges, and some of us may never see the fruit of our labors. But I can attest to this. I will not stray from my principles, morals, or values. I will continue to promote conservatism, and most of all, I will defend America from foreign and domestic, and together we will carry the torch of liberty. This we'll defend. And that's the bottom line. I forgot to mention the YouTube chats. If you're watching on the YouTubes, please join us in the chat. Say something. Let us know that you're over there watching and listening. I see that Jessica's over there. We do need to fight and try to get our country back. I also see that Army John, on the Twitters, he's known as @ArmyJohn. He says, fight indeed. Yes, we do need to fight. Look, these are plain and precious truths that if we surrender now, everything that we have done over the last 200 plus years will have been for a waste. It will have been for no good at all. Jessica says that she just got off the air with Rio from Madison Rising. Rio is the lead singer, the new lead singer for Madison Rising. I know a lot of you guys are really, really close with Dave Bray, and you were really bothered by the idea that Dave Bray, he's moved on from Madison Rising, and they've brought on Rio as their lead singer. I can't help but think that along with Rio's help, that Madison Rising is going to move on to bigger and better things. I wish them the best of luck, and as a matter of fact, if you tune in to the After the Show, we've got a little something special for you. That's a teaser. It does have to do with Madison Rising. So please, when we are done with the show, please, I want you to know that the After the Show, we've got something special, something that you have likely not heard, and in my opinion, it's great. So stick around for that. And if you haven't done so, please check out Jessica's show. She is on before us every Monday night. She covers a lot of military stuff, and kudos to her because she's got her eye on anything and everything that has to do with our military, and my heart goes out to her. Thank you so much for keeping an eye on things. I'm glad that you're on our side because, lady, you are so passionate. So please, if you haven't checked out her show, again, she's on right before the Stafford Voice. She's great. Very, very passionate about the military, as well as I am. I love our men and women that serve this country. They keep me fired up. Okay, so I like, you guys know I like history. I really do like history, and when you look at things throughout history, something that really will catch your eye is those quote-unquote tinfoil hat type things. Those things that make you go, And for about every 4 years, this guy pops back up. Or any other major catastrophic event in history, this guy pops up. I'm talking about Nostradamus. I've got two different areas for notes, so if I seem like I'm bouncing all over the place, it's because I took notes as we were watching this, and this was a special that the History Channel did. I really liked it. I thought it was interesting. I'm not going to say I believe all of it. I think a lot of it is open to interpretation. I don't put a lot of weight on what was said. You know, I know that a lot of people consider Nostradamus to be a prophet. I think he said some prophetic things, but again, I think it goes back to I really think it goes back to how you interpret things. I think that's really what it comes down to. But nonetheless, History Channel put this special together. It was called Nostradamus Election 2016. I believe if you go over to history.com, you're able to watch it over there. I don't think that there's any restrictions. I think if you want to watch it, you don't have to log in or anything. So there were a couple of things that stuck out to me. I thought they were interesting. I don't have my tinfoil hat. I've retired that particular one. I didn't really feel like having to build a Faraday cage or put together another hat for tonight. But nonetheless, I thought there were a couple of things that were rather interesting, and I wanted to share them with you. So without further ado, let's dive into some of these things that they brought up that have to do with Nostradamus. Again, a lot of people consider him to be a prophet, and they put this special together with one question in mind, and that is, did he predict the 2016 election? Honestly, how can you predict anything? Especially with this election. This thing was a joke. And in the days to come, we're going to find out who is going to be the next president. I'm not putting a lot of weight on what Nostradamus has predicted, that is. But, again, there's some things that... Oh, okay, so here's one. Now, let me explain how his writings, and this comes from the collection of writings, which I believe they were called the Prophecies. If you don't know a lot about it, they are broken down into what they consider centuries, and then they're issued as quatrains. It's kind of poetic in nature, but they still have that slight undertone that maybe it could be viewed in a prophetic sense, but nonetheless. So in a lot of the stuff was contained within the same century, that is. So here's one. Century 8, quatrain 15, says, "The masculine woman will exert herself to the north. She will annoy nearly all of Europe and the rest of the world. 2 failures will put her in such an imbalance that both life and death will strengthen Eastern Europe." Okay. That could be looked at as 2 different people. One, it could be Angela Merkel, but when they put the show together, obviously they were really trying to push the idea that this was Hillary Clinton. The masculine woman will exert herself. She'll annoy nearly all of Europe and the rest of the world. They tried to talk about these 2 failures and how it will put her in imbalance. One of them being the emails. I don't remember. Oh yeah, the other one was the Benghazi thing. That's right. So the 2 things that she said that they're trying to point these 2 failures to was Benghazi and the emails. Again, open to interpretation. It could have been. I mean, you could explain this in context of Angela Merkel trying to be a masculine woman, exerting herself. One of the failures be, okay, so 2 failures basically. One of them would be instability within Europe, and then the other failure could be let's just say the financial system in Germany. That could be the other. Or the fact that she is openly bringing in all of these Middle Eastern people, refugees, that is, and how it'll be both the life and death, and how it will strengthen Eastern Europe. And it's only going to, if you try to put that in context with Angela Merkel, the only context that is it gives life to their caliphate, and it brings death to Europe. Again, a lot of these things are open for interpretation. So, where does Donald Trump fit into this? Oh, here. I gotta find the one. Okay, here it is. Century 1, quatrain 57. It says, "The trumpet shakes with great discord, an agreement broken, lifting the face to heaven. The bloody mouth will swim with blood. The face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground." The trumpet, obviously, they're trying to point to the fact that he's naming Donald Trump. Again, open for interpretation. Where was Okay, where's 20? Okay, here it is. Century 8, Quatrain 20. It says, the false message about the rigged election. To run through the city, stopping the broken pact, voices bought, chapel stained with blood, the empire contracted to another one. Let's break that down, and before we do, I want to say welcome to Tina in the chat. She's sorry for being late. Tina, it's no big deal. It really isn't. It doesn't. That's fine. I mean, everybody, it's just like normal television, and real life tends to get into the way of a lot of things. And just before the show, I was having a lot of problems with the rig here that helps run everything. I had to give a hard reboot to everything. I was really, really struggling and worried that I was going to have to call the show. But luckily, things are, I think, good to go. I think we're good to go. And Justin, thanks for joining us again this week. I saw that you didn't fare too well in Dallas at the Magic the Gathering tournament. I think you and our son Daniel met up and had a great time together, and shame on you about the Whataburger thing. But I'm not going to hold that against you. He says he probably won't make the whole show. That's fine. He's got to get up at 4:30. I'm right there with you, brother. I got to do the same thing. He says he'll watch it tomorrow, though. You missed a great first part of the show leading up until now. Tina, you're going to have to go back and check that out. I will, I'll break the show apart so it's a little easier to dissect the parts that you may or may not have missed. But anyway, so back to Quatrain 20 of Century 8, the false message about the rigged election. So they were trying to say that Nostradamus was predicting that Donald Trump is going to claim that this is a rigged election, even though it's false. So they were trying to say that the whole rigged election is a false narrative, is a farce. There's no meaning behind any of it. He's saying that the voices bought and the chapel stained with blood. So the voices bought obviously was Hillary's. They were saying that Hillary is bought and paid for by those that are staining the chapel, that is, over in the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, and those that are funding ISIS. The same people that are funding ISIS actually helped fund Hillary Clinton. And then he ends that quatrain by saying the empire contracted to another one. So basically saying it. There's so many different ways you could take this. So in the first century, Quatrain 57, we read that he talks about a trumpet, but in this one, he's saying that basically it could go to Hillary Clinton. Either way, here's what I'll say. If it is remotely interesting at all to you, go over to history.com. They've got a lot of the things that they looked at from Nostradamus' writing, the prophecies, and they're all written out and translated so you can look at and try and dissect them for yourself. Also, you're able to watch the Nostradamus Election 2016 special for yourself. Take it at face value. Again, a lot of it is open to interpretation. Some of it I was like, seriously, and a couple of other times I was thinking to myself, wow, that's really, really interesting. I see that, let's see, History.com I'm familiar with that site, LOL. I like history. Matter of fact, I spend almost all of my waking time, if I'm not working on the show, I'm studying history. I absolutely love history. I see that at Protopotamus is over on the Twitters saying that he's watching. I appreciate that. Oh, there it is. There he is, the Protopotamus. History is the coolest. History is the coolest. Yes, that is true. I see that Slick has finally joined us. He says he's late. He's never late. He was working hard in the shop, probably, which is good. I'm glad to hear that business is booming over at Rebel Road Tactical. You guys, Vikings, are you saying you want to talk about Vikings? Yeah, we should probably look into some Viking stuff. The Vikings they're rich in history. They got a lot of things that we could talk about. So I'm going to throw this question out there. Nostradamus, is it another tinfoil hat moment? I don't know. This is rich. We've got the Protopotamus and the Ladypotamus in the chat room together. I don't know how they do it. Those two are hilarious. They are equally as funny as Tina and Slick are. I got the greatest listeners. You guys are incredible. For both of you to sit there and you're watching the same thing. Hopefully you're not watching it on the big screen, but maybe you are. Because I worked really hard on putting together some new show stuff for you guys. Hopefully you noticed during the bottom line. You probably noticed that the little ticker thing down here, it changed. We're working on trying to take things to a whole new level. Really excited for things to come, and if you haven't signed up for it, please sign up for our newsletter. We're going to start that probably at the end of November. Yes, even the date is correct. I have a note right there, right up here next to the camera that says change the date, change the title, and make sure that at least minimal Profiles in History stuff is changed and updated. Okay, I'm looking at the time, and it's telling me we need to take a break. And that's okay. And how exactly do you sign up for that? Justin, it's really easy. Go over to thestaffordvoice.com, and there's going to be a bar at the top, or if you scroll down on the page, the bottom right-hand corner, there will be a little pop-up that asks you to put in your email address, and I can't remember how many other things I've got set for that, how much other information it tries to capture. But I'll warn you, if you do sign up, one of the first few emails that you will receive from us kind of gives you a history about the show, the website, how things came to be. Protopotamus, thank you for putting that up there. I appreciate it. So, we need to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about relaxing military standards while we're increasing VA bonuses. Outrageous? Yes. So many different ways. We'll be right back.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Nothing will protect you quite like your sidearm, so why not give it the protection it deserves? Something as strong as the Second Amendment and stands the test of time, and better yet, made in the USA. A Rebel Road Tactical Custom Kydex holster is that and more. Call now and place your order with Rebel Road Tactical at 682-217-4579. Again, 682-217-4579, or online at rebelroadtactical.com.
Conservative, in a world of liberal.
The Stafford Voice.
All right, and we are back. I'm your host, Daniel Stafford. Tina says that they have us on, they've got me on the big screen. How gloriously distracting that may be. Avenged Sevenfold background music, this just became my favorite show. Well, no. I mean, if you notice the introduction, it's some A7X. You may notice some, you might notice that I like A7X. I'm a metal dude, rock it through and through, babe. And no, not some AC/DC crap. That's right, I will go down for saying that. I am not a fan of AC/DC. Protopotamus can testify to that. I'm personally loving the whiteboard in the background. Look, bigly things are coming in the future. I'm really working on laying out some things in the near future. Hopefully that stuff happens at the first of the year. We're really respect your elders. Respect my elders. AC/DC? Or are you saying you like AC/DC? That's okay. I don't have any. I have nothing against anybody that likes AC/DC. I personally don't like them. I think they're overrated and have been for years. But the whiteboard in the back, we will hopefully be no, they don't mix on this. Anyway, we're done talking about AC/DC. Morbid Angel, War, music is going to have to be a totally different show and a different time. And as a matter of fact, if you listen, okay, huge shout out to Jason DeWilkins for the According to Me show. If you didn't know, Jason DeWilkins has teamed up with, I believe, a really close friend of his, and they have a show that they're putting out called the According to Metal show. Old school Metallica, yes. The According to Metal show is everything about metal music. They review new albums that are coming out. They bring on bands and they talk with them about their music and stuff like that. Great show, great hosts. If you like the metal music scene and you want to keep up with it, please head on over and make sure you find the According to Metal podcast. It really is good. I've been finding out about new music from those guys for a while now. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. Okay, speaking of being disappointed, we got to get this beautiful disaster back on track. Okay, relaxing military standards while increasing VA bonuses. Really? Seriously? Well, okay, so Defense Secretary Ash Carter has launched a sweeping review of the military's recruiting standards, saying current rules for screening new entrants may be, quote, overly restrictive and preventing America's most talented young people from joining the ranks. Now, among the benchmarks that will get new scrutiny are these: fitness standards, marijuana use, tattoo regulations, and the military's longtime reluctance to allow single parents to start military careers. This is what he is calling the quote-unquote force of the future. So here's what he says. Now, some of these things we will never be able to compromise on, and we will always have to maintain high standards. But at the same time, these benchmarks must be kept relevant for both today's force and tomorrow's, meaning we have to ensure they're not unnecessarily restrictive. I'm trying to keep up with you over in the chat room. I'm just waiting for them to tell our military they have to furnish their own weapons. And if they do, Slick, I know a great company that they can go and get a fantastic holster that will meet and exceed their expectations on carrying their sidearm. Army John says, answer, union bosses for Democrat vote. VA has a union. Military isn't a union, therefore we get screwed. Yes, the modern military must find a way to kill the enemy without hurting their feelings. I don't know how you can do that. I really don't know how you can do that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say this really quick, and then we got to get back on topic. Yes, sir, already been battle tested. I'm pretty positive that they already have been. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you know somebody that has already carried one through battle, and I'm so glad that they've made it home. When I found out that they were over there serving, we prayed for them night and day. Okay, so real quick, I got caught into some silly little whirlpool on the YouTubes watching short films. I'm absolutely fascinated with short films, and I watched one this morning. It was a comedy, and it was called The Expert, and they were sitting at this boardroom, and they were being presented with what the client wanted, and that was to have seven perfectly perpendicular lines that they wanted to draw red lines. Excuse me, I got the hiccups tonight. They wanted to draw 7 red lines, each one of them perfectly perpendicular with the next, but they wanted 2 of them to be green and the rest of them to be in invisible ink. And the expert said, yeah, you can't do that. Anyway, that reminded me about the whole thing about killing the enemy without hurting their feelings. That reminded me of that, and I don't feel why I felt compelled to share that. Anyway, okay. So, what's under review? Fitness standards. Reviewing fitness requirements reflects a fear that today's youth are fatter than ever. Really, that's how they wrote it. That today's youth are fatter than ever. An estimated 70% are ineligible for military service based on traditional standards related to health, education, and past misconduct. Look, if you really want to right yourself and you want to go into the military, they should really look at your misconduct and determine whether or not you are still fit for military service. I don't have a problem with that. Education, again, there's some really, really dumb people in the military, and quite frankly, I don't know how they function by themselves daily without having a handler like Hillary does. But you can be really dumb, but at the same time have some of the most insane common sense. You can be dumb and smart at the same time. Okay, we've got to continue on. Most of the dumb ones are officers. Almost all of the dumb ones are officers, Slick. At least when I was in, they were. Today's military rule of engagement is like RoboCop 2 movie, when RoboCop went from 4 prime directives to over 2,000 directives of trivial rules that had nothing to do with law enforcement. It's true. Basically, you have to ask for permission to wipe your own you-know-what before you engage. It's absolutely ridiculous. But when we're firing unicorns filled with glitter at them, you really don't want to hurt your enemy. So, look, here's the thing. I'm 37 years old. I'm probably in better shape now than I was when I was in the military, and there is no doubt that I could go out and pass the PT standards of an 18-year-old and pass them with flying colors. And that's even before I lost the 25 pounds so far, I could have passed it. Let's continue. He says, quote, "We have a much bigger problem with obesity and overweight people in our society than we've had historically, so we have a different base to look at in terms of recruits." Look, if Captain Chubby wants to go into the military, tell him to go on a damn diet. Meet the standards. We have an elite fighting force for a reason. It's not because Michael Moore can walk 2 miles in 5 days, okay? Jabba the Hutt, there's no place for Jabba the Hutt in the military. Meet the damn standards or don't join. Most of today's youth can't meet the standards. I agree, it's sad, but these standards are not out of reach. It's all about the feelings. That's true, and when I was getting out, they were talking about bringing in these little stress cards where basically you pull out a card and you say, "No, you're hurting my feelings, drill sergeant. Mommy, I need a bottle." Okay, anyway, tattoos. So Carter also mentioned tattoo policies as a concern that might be keeping highly qualified individuals from joining the military. I got no problem with tats. Seriously, if you have tattoos and I'm staring at you, it's probably because I'm looking at your ink. I'm not judging you. I'm just checking out your ink, trying to see if yours was better than the last guy's. Anyway, I like tattoos. I personally don't have any. I personally will never get one. It's a choice that I've made years ago. I love tats, and I'm just going to say that. I have no problem with recruits having tats or anybody in the military having tattoos. Marijuana use. Okay, rules regarding recruits' marijuana usage are also getting a new look as thousands of prospective recruits are now living in states where medical and recreational marijuana is now legal. Carter is instructing top personnel officials to consider pilot programs to, quote-unquote, assess the feasibility and impact of updated standards on the issue of past military use. In summary, he says, quote, "Geographically, our military's recruiting pool is shrinking with more and more of our people coming from fewer and fewer states. Today, young Americans from rural areas are two times more likely to join the military than young Americans from urban areas. We would be missing an opportunity if we kept fishing only in the same geographic ponds we always have. Instead, we need to seize the opportunity by fishing in more ponds, new ponds, and ponds we haven't been to in a long time. We have to draw talent from our country's entire pool of population for our all-volunteer force." Whatever, dude. We don't need... I'm not going into it. That guy, we could have featured on our Who Said That segment later, but we've got a dill hole lined up. Best friends in aviation. Justin says his best friend's an aviation mechanic in the Navy and is covered. but almost all of them are meaningful. That's very true. Almost everybody I know that has a tattoo, there is a story behind each one of them. And seriously, if you go up to anybody with tattoos and you ask them, hey, what's that one mean? Or where were you when you got that? Why did you get that? They will tell you the story. Almost all of them are very, very open about talking about them. And quite frankly, you're going to hear some incredible stories that relate to tattoos. Okay, so about these bonuses, shall we? And despite all the problems at the VA, the agency handed out more than $177 million in bonuses for the fiscal year of 2015 to nearly 189,000 employees. Get this, more than 300 senior executives received some $3.3 million in bonuses for an average payment of about $10,000. Bonuses for non-executives averaged about $900. Among the managers receiving bonuses, the newspaper, this was the USA Today was reporting, was the former top VA official in Ohio who retired the same day he received a termination notice. How can you retire and get terminated? I will never know, but only the dysfunctional VA can figure out a way. Another bonus went to the chief of staff at the scandal-ridden Phoenix VA Medical Center who got the cash award 4 months before he was fired. And it really makes you wonder how these guys got a cash bonus while we're out there trying to collect money from those who received an enlistment bonus. Let's remember that. So in all, more than half of all VA employees received a bonus, an increase of about 20% from the fiscal year 2014. The total amount paid in bonuses rose 24%, up from $142 million in 2014. Payments should be revoked if found guilty of criminal actions. Yes, that's true, but who cares, right? We've got to give them a bonus because they did a great job. No, they didn't. The VA sucks. The the leadership in the VA is beyond ridiculous. Okay, I'm really watching the time. I am. I'm keeping track. We're okay. Now, before we do profiles in history, let me give you a reminder about this whole supermoon thing that's set to reveal itself on November 14th. That's coming up here in a few days. And it won't be this close to Earth for another 18 years. And in fact, the last time it looked this big was back in 1948. NASA explains that what makes it so special this time around is that the moon, quote, becomes full within about 2 hours of perigee, arguably making it an extra supermoon. Even more interesting is that this is like the year of supermoons, that is. There was one on October 16th, and they're saying that there will be another on December 14th. But none of those will be as close as the one set for November 14th. So, if you miss it, mark your calendar for November 25th, 2034. I likely, who knows where I will be. So I'm going to try and make sure I catch the one on November 14th because I don't know where I'll be or what I'll be doing November 25th, 2034. That seems like forever and a day down the road. Okay, let's get things going in a different direction, shall we? We've still got to fit all this stuff in. And profiles in history. Nicknamed Honest John, Benjamin Rush described him as a plain, honest, well-meaning Jersey farmer with but little education, but with good sense and virtue enough to pursue the true interests of his country. John Hart was born in the year 1713 on the family farm in Hopewell Township, New Jersey. His education was modest, having never attended a fancy college. Rather, he worked hard helping build up the 400-acre family farm. And over time, with the aid and investment from other family members, he grew it to include a grist mill, a fulling mill, and a sawmill. In 1740, he married Deborah Scooter, and together they would have 13 children. Hart was a generous Presbyterian who actually donated land to the Baptists in 1747 so they could build a church. In 1750, John was elected to the Hunterdon County Board of Chosen Freeholders. However, it was his generosity combined with his work as a judge that got him elected to the New Jersey Colonial Assembly in 1761, where he would serve until 1771, during which he was appointed to the local Committee of Safety and the Committee of Correspondence, as well as becoming a judge on the Court of Common Pleas. During his time with the Committee of Safety, and having been opposed to the Stamp Act, he gained the attention necessary to be selected as a delegate for New Jersey in 1776. You see, the New Jersey delegates in the First Continental Congress were opposed to independence, so they were dumped, and the Provisional Congress selected delegates to replace them, John Hart being one of them. He arrived in Philadelphia just days before the votes for independence would be cast, voting in favor of the Declaration of Independence, earning him the honor of later signing it in August of 1776. With that behind him, and New Jersey under their new state constitution, Hart was elected to the first New Jersey State General Assembly and was made Speaker. As Speaker, he would take on the additional duties as Treasurer of the Council of Safety, President of the Joint Meetings of the New Jersey Congress, and Commissioner of the State Loan Office. Now, there was a period of about a month that the Assembly shut down because, well, it was just unable to work without its Speaker, because on October 5th, 1776, John went home to see his sick wife. In an attempt to return to the Assembly, he would be called back home where his wife would pass away on October 8th. Now, by November, the British were closing in on New Jersey, and in December, they were close to John Hart's home. His two younger children that were still living at home had been sent off to stay safely with friends, and because he was Speaker of the Assembly, he was a marked man. He fled to the nearby Sourland Mountains, where he would hide out in a cave for a few days while the British plundered his home. In June of 1778, Hart played host to Washington and 12,000 recharging troops who camped in his fields. Unfortunately, he didn't live to see the end of the Revolutionary War. On May 11, 1779, at the age of 68, John Hart died on his estate at Hopewell from a case of gravel, which we call today kidney stones. And that is this week's Profiles in History. Fascinating individual, I might add. I really enjoyed digging into John Hart and learning a little bit more about him and what he did. He's one of those guys that we need to model ourselves after. His generosity was impeccable. He was more than generous with what he had. Case in point, when he donated some land to the Baptists so they could build a church. And him not even being a Baptist, he was a Presbyterian. It's just fascinating. It's just a shame that he died so young. I'd say young, at the age of 68. That's still relatively young. Okay. Where are we at on time? Oh! We're gonna have to wrap this up, but we, you know what? Just because we wrap the show up here, you have to stick around for the After the show. I didn't really get to put too much together for our surprise, unfortunately, but you're going to like it. It, in my opinion, I really enjoyed it. So, with that, we're going to have to hold off on our Who Said That for the After the show because that silly little annoying clock in the background tells us that's all the time we have for this week. And, God willing, the Stafford Voice will be back next week. You can follow me on the Twitters or on the Gabs at Stafford Voice. Look me up on the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Snapchats. All you got to do is just search for the Stafford Voice. Please sign up for our email list so you can get in on the action with our newsletter that we hope to push out once a month. We promise not to spam you. Also, if you would like to email any of your questions or comments or concerns to the show, you can do so, thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your time tonight, and until next week, thanks and God bless.